A sky stretched thick with stars, their light cold and sharp like frost on a stone window pane, lingers over the small Castilian town of Palos de la Frontera. The town is not much more than a cluster of lanterns and weathered roofs, perched near the mouth of the Tinto River, and from your perch on the bluff, half hidden behind barrels of smoked fish and nets drying in the breeze, it looks like a dream you're sneaking into, rather than a place you've lived your whole life. Your satchel is light. A crust of salted bread, a copper crucifix from your mother's necklace, and a woolen cap you've outgrown but can't quite let go. You carry no compass, no weapon, no map. Only a name passed in whispers at the docks. Santa María, and the reckless certainty that there must be more waiting beyond the horizon than what this tiny port has ever offered. You're no sailor. Not yet. At 12, you're barely tall enough to duck under the netting strung along the piers. But you're quick and smaller than most, and that makes you useful in tight places. Places adults fear to go or simply can't fit. The dock hands call you rata de cuaderna, little ribrat, because you've spent more time scuttling between the ship's frames than walking a proper plank. You've already memorized the 3 ships by name: the Niña sleek and nimble like a sparrow, the Pinta proud and sharp as a knife's tip, and the Santa María, the so-called flagship, though even you can see she's the slowest and widest of the 3, a merchant vessel retrofitted for glory. She's all ribs and girth and red-painted crosses on her sails, flapping idly in the sea breeze, like flags of half-remembered crusades. But that night, the ship doesn't feel slow. It waits like a secret. There's a smell around her that isn't just tar and pine. It's older, like rainwater trapped in stone, like fire soot buried beneath candle wax. You don't know why you notice it, only that it seeps into your clothes as soon as you climb aboard. The sailors barely notice you. They're too busy hurling crates and arguing about casks and charts. You duck past their shouts, clutching the small scrap of paper that the quartermaster gave you, your name scrawled in bad Latin smudged with brine and grease. He didn't ask for your age, only if you could keep quiet and sleep standing up. You nodded, and that was enough. That night, you find your place beneath the deck, curled beside barrels of dried lentils and iron spikes near the keel, where the hull creaks like a sleeping beast. Somewhere above, boots stomp and curses fly. Below, it's all wood and dark, and the hush of seawater brushing against the belly of the ship. You press your cheek to the planks. Through the wood, you hear it. The ocean speaks in whispers. Not words, not exactly. More like breath, or the distant memory of breath. The kind you hear when someone is sleeping beside you and dreaming strange things they won't remember. And in that moment, you think perhaps the sea has already remembered you. Dawn doesn't so much break as stretch slowly into existence. Light filters in through the hatch above, soft and gray, like ash smeared across parchment. The other boys, 3 of them, older, meaner, have already woken and claimed the best scraps of dried meat. You nibble at your bread in silence, pretending not to notice when they laugh and jostle you with their boots. Above deck, the captain arrives. You don't see his face, only the shadow he casts as he walks past the sail lines. Tall, rigid, cloaked in quiet authority. Some say he's mad. Others say he speaks to angels. You wonder which one is worse. They say his name is Cristobal Colon, and he believes he can reach the edge of the world. Some mutter he's Genoese. Others claim he's from some place nobody's heard of. But none dare say it too loud. He walks as if he already knows the truth and is just waiting for the world to catch up. Later that morning, as the bells ring from the town, the anchor is hauled, and the ships begin to lurch forward into the unknown. You grip the railing beside the cook's boy and feel the tug of it, gravity bending a weight, shifting not just in your stomach, but deep in the air itself. Palos fades behind you like smoke from a chimney. The shoreline flattens, shrinks, and vanishes. The only world you've known collapses into a line of distant haze, and ahead, nothing. Nothing but sea and stars you haven't learned the names of. The first days blur, ropes to coil, decks to scrub, rats to chase. You fetch brine for the surgeon's salt pork for the helmsman and chamber pots for the cabin above. You sleep in shifts curled around ropes beneath hammocks that leak old sweat. Every hour is soaked in sea spray and the smell of old fish. Yet even in your weariness you begin to learn the patterns. There is the sailor who hums ancient songs as he ties knots you can't name. The one who sharpens whalebone needles and carves the initials of old lovers into the ribs of the hull. The one who refuses to sleep below deck and instead prays each night with his feet touching the sea line. Then there's the mast. You notice it one evening as you climb up to help patch a tear in the mainsail. The mainmast is thicker than it should be, with deep carvings where no one else looks symbols buried beneath coats of pitch like vines etched into bark. You trace one with your finger. It's warm even in the cold air. And then just for a second it pulses. You don't tell anyone. Not the other boys who would mock you. Not the bosun who would cuff your ear. Not the cook who grumbles about cursed wood and spit-slick knives. But that night, as you press your ear to the planks again, the sea is louder. And somewhere deep inside the mast, or maybe inside your chest, you hear a voice. Not a word, just a hum. A slow, terrible hum. 2 weeks at sea. Food grows dull, tempers short. The horizon never changes. Only the sky shifts, clouds blooming like ink blot, stars rearranging like runes. One night, an old sailor pulls you aside. His beard is more salt than hair, and his eyes are the color of grave moss. Do you know what's inland, he whispers. You blink. Trees. He chuckles, but it's not a kind sound. They say it's not land that waits there, boy. Not land at all, but a wound. A tear in the world. Something old and breathing. You frown. How do you know? I was there, he says once. Or maybe I only dreamed I was. Makes no difference. It remembers either way. Then he coughs deep and ragged and walks away into the shadows. He dies 2 nights later, face down in his own blanket eyes, wide as if still staring at something that never stopped watching him. No one says his name again, but you do, quietly, to the mast. And the mast listens, because now you understand something no one else does. This ship, this Santa Maria, she's not just wood and cloth. She's waiting too. Just like you, the ship is alive, not merely in the way all vessels seem to groan and settle like old women sighing through their bones, but in a deeper, older sense. You feel it now, especially at night, when the creaks grow rhythmic like breathing, and the lantern light flickers in tandem with sounds that don't belong to wind or water or rope. The Santa Maria isn't just crossing the ocean, she's carrying something, or someone. You're not sure which unnerves you more. Your duties begin before sunrise and end when the stars return to their rightful places. Aboard this ship, time is measured not in hours, but in tasks. You fetch scrub haul, listen. The grown sailors shout and drink and bicker always louder than they need to be, as if noise can hold back the vast silence that lies beyond the edge of the deck. And while their voices echo off timber and sail, you begin to listen more carefully to the sounds that don't come from human mouths. There's the groan of the bow when no one walks there, the sudden slap of a rope that hasn't been touched, the sigh of a bucket rolling against the hull, stopping precisely where it shouldn't. You're not imagining these things, or maybe you are, but even if so, why would your mind conjure such oddly specific details? A shadow that pauses mid-deck and then climbs the mast as if it knows its way. A knot you know you tied now perfectly undone and coiled as though stroked by a careful, reverent hand. You ask no questions. That too you've learned, because the ship doesn't answer with words. She answers with gestures. You're part of something now, part of a floating village, yes, but also something stranger, something quieter, a kind of secret theater where the roles are never announced and every scene is improvised. There are 40-some souls aboard this creaking stage, and each has his own superstition, his own way of making peace with the unknown. One sailor mutters a blessing each time he passes the forward hatch. Another refuses to eat anything not salted twice. The cook tucks a dried chicken foot into the folds of his apron and taps it 3 times before lighting the fire. You've even seen the boatswain whisper into a lantern before hanging it, his lips barely moving, as though feeding it instructions. And what do? You listen, you watch, and you obey the ship. It's on the 7th evening under a thick, sticky dusk that you notice something new. There's a storage hatch just behind the galley, rarely opened, sealed with pitch and a thick iron ring. You've passed it 100 times, never giving it much thought. But now, the pitch is cracked. A fine line snakes down its center, revealing a narrow breath of darkness beneath. The wind shifts then, as if in reaction, bringing with it a smell you can't quite name. Not rot, not brine, something older, like the inside of a tomb, after the stone lid is lifted for the first time in centuries. You're about to reach for it when the carpenter's mate calls for your help. You don't return to the hatch that night, but you dream about it. In the dream, you climb down into the storage room and find that it is not a room at all. It's a cavern, a breathing cavern lined with hull planks that twist into shapes' faces, hands knotted ropes that seem to reach toward you like roots through damp soil. And there's music, a low droning hum, the same one you once heard in the mast, now louder, woven through with words you almost recognize, names, promises, a warning. You wake with a start and realize you're gripping the satchel on your chest like a shield. The bread inside is crumbled to dust. 3 days pass. The sea changes. It becomes smoother, slicker, like oil instead of water. The sails hang heavy with moisture that never dries even in the sun. Birds vanish. The horizon remains fixed as though the ship no longer moves but merely rocks in place. And the men begin to quarrel. Not about food or orders, but about direction. Some say they've seen the same cloud 3 days running. Others swear they've passed the same current twice. The quartermaster draws lines on his chart and mutters to himself in a dialect you don't recognize. Columbus does not emerge, not for meals, not for meetings. The first mate claims he's consulting the stars, but even he looks uneasy when he says it. You catch him once, staring at the captain's cabin door, with a look that isn't quite fear, but close. A quiet, growing distrust, like one might feel toward a priest who begins talking to statues. Then on the 9th night, something thuds against the hull, hard, not once, 3 times. You scramble above deck with the others, searching the sea for signs of driftwood or flotsam. But there's nothing, just the oily black surface, and the moon's pale reflection, dancing like a dying fish. The watchman swears he saw something in the water. Long, he says, voice trembling and made of brass or something like it. Too smooth for a whale, too long for a mast. No one believes him, but no one laughs either, because now the sea is quiet again. Too quiet. Another day, and the whispering begins, not from the men, from the ship. You hear it near the hold when you crouch beside the barrels. A voice thin as fishing line humming, just beneath the pitch of the waves. You lean in. You strain to catch the words. And though you cannot fully understand them, you know they are meant for you. You already know the shape of it. The message is not spoken aloud. It's pressed into your thoughts like a thumb into wax. That night, the carpenter pulls you aside. He's older, his teeth dark from years of salted meat and sour drink, his beard plaited into knots bound with wax thread. You've been near the mast, he says. I can smell the pitch on you. You nod. He sighs. Do you know what's inside? You start to answer, but he shakes his head. Not words, not a person, not even an object, not really. His eyes narrow. It's a path, a direction hidden inside something solid, a knot turned inward. Something you only see when you stop looking. You blink. Then how do you find it? He smiles grim and tired. You don't. It finds you. Then he hands you something. A nail, longer than your hand, forged black and warm to the touch. Keep this. If the mast calls to you again, use it. Drive it deep. He walks away before you can ask anything else. The nail weighs down your satchel. Heavier than any piece of iron ought to be. Heavier than truth. You climb into the rigging again, the following evening. The air is thick, painted in copper, and wine the sunset bleeding into the sails. A sailor below chants a prayer to Saint Elmo, his voice rising above the snap of cloth and the groan of wood. You reach the crossbar, wedge yourself between ropes, and gaze down upon the deck, and that's when you see it. Just for a moment, a shape. It crawls along the spine of the ship, not walking, not slithering, but flowing, as if made of pitch and wind and something that used to be flesh. No one else sees it, or they pretend not to. It reaches the mast, touches it, and vanishes. The mast pulses once, and you hear the hum again. This time it is louder, not just sound, but feeling a resonance in your chest, a vibration behind your teeth. You grip the nail in your pocket, fingers tightening. Then from high above you spot something strange, a lantern flickering at the far end of the ship, but there's no one near it. No wind touches it, and yet it sways slowly like a pendulum marking time, back and forth, back and forth. You stare for too long, and when you finally climb down again, the deck feels different, as if it's been rearranged in your absence. By midnight, everything has returned to normal. If normal means a crew too tired to sleep, too frightened to speak, too soaked in sweat to blink. You find the old cook kneeling near the stern, whispering something into the sea. He beckons you. You saw it, didn't you? You nod. He pulls a small pouch from his sleeve and sprinkles something over the side, powdered bone, you think. Or maybe ground shell. They only come when the ship forgets its name, he says. What do you mean? Every ship has a true name hidden in the timbers. Lose it and she wanders. She invites things that shouldn't be real. He looks at you. You remember what they called this ship before. You frown. La Galega, you say. She was a cargo ship once. He nods slowly. She remembers, boy. And she's angry. You feel it now. Beneath your feet. The shudder. The pulse. The breath. The Santa María is more than a ship. She is a question. And soon, she will demand an answer. Morning arrives like a blade, thin and sharp, slicing through the fog that has wrapped itself around the ship for days without pause. The world beyond the deck is reduced to whispers of white, no sky, no sea, only mist. It clings to your skin like wet linen and smells of salt mold and something metallic, like the scent left behind after striking flint. No one knows where they are. Not the helmsman who keeps glancing at his compass as if it's betrayed him. Not the navigator whose charts have begun to wrinkle and curl as though they too are trying to flee the ship. And certainly not the captain who now emerges only in brief glimpses, his eyes rimmed with sleeplessness, his lips muttering things no one dares repeat. You no longer mark time by the sun, for it has vanished behind the ever-thickening veil. Instead, you've learned to count days by the meals served: 1 bowl of dried lentils, 2 cups of brackish water, a single hunk of bread hardened like stone. Some say it's been a week in the fog. Others swear it's been 2. But you suspect time no longer behaves the way it once did. You suspect something else governs it now, and you begin to suspect that the mast is listening. You catch it watching, even though it has no eyes. You feel its awareness in the way it hums ever so softly at night, just at the edge of your hearing. You feel it in the way the wood seems to twitch beneath your feet when you pass near. It's subtle, like the flicker of an eyelid or the tremor of a sleeper beginning to dream. One morning, you're sent to check the ropes fastened high on the mizzen mast, for they've begun to fray in a way that confuses the crew. You climb as you always do, nimble as a monkey, the sea wind slicing across your cheeks. Halfway up, you feel the pitch-stained rope go taut beneath your palm, and then loosen, not like it's snapping, more like it's unwinding itself. You freeze. The line below you slithers an inch through the pulley, tightening again with a soft hiss. You reach the top eyes darting around the sail, and that's when you see it. Carved into the mast just beneath the crow's nest, barely visible beneath layers of tar and old repairs, is a symbol. A circle split in half by a jagged line. Surrounding it are 4 small dots, evenly spaced. You know it shouldn't be there. The ship's carpenter, meticulous as he is, would never mark the mast. Nor would any sailor, for it's a grave superstition to scar a ship's spine. And yet here it is, clean, precise, fresh. You reach out to touch it, but your fingers stop an inch away. There's a sensation there, not resistance, but attention. The wood is watching you, and somewhere deep inside something stirs. That night you dream again, but it's not like the other dreams, those half-formed flickers of shadow and storm. This one feels real. You stand on a deck, but it's not the Santa Maria. The planks beneath your feet are darker, older, scorched at the edges as though rescued from fire. The sky is red, but there is no sun. Only a pulsing light beneath the sea that casts its glow upward. Before you stands a figure, tall, hooded. No face, only a mouth stitched closed with iron thread. In its hand it holds a journal, bound in what looks like sharkskin, its edges curling from damp. The figure offers it to you with a slow, deliberate gesture. When you reach for it, your hand burns. The heat shoots up your arm and into your chest. And when you scream, no sound comes out, only fog. You wake gasping in your hammock, the ship groaning beneath you. Your hand still tingles. The next morning you avoid the mast. You busy yourself with coiling ropes, polishing buckets, fetching water. But the ship seems determined to draw you back. The first mate, silent for hours, suddenly barks your name. You, cabin boy. The rigging on the mainmast, go check the knots. You open your mouth to protest. He cuts you off with a glare. I said go. You climb. You always do. But this time you take the carpenter's nail with you. The sky above is the color of bruised parchment, shot through with streaks of lavender and ash. The sea is oddly still, as if it too is holding its breath. As you reach the same point in the mast where you saw the symbol, you pause. It's gone. The surface is smooth now, perfectly sealed. No trace of carving, no outline beneath the pitch. But the air here feels wrong. Too quiet, too warm. You pull out the nail. It trembles in your grip, as though aware of where it is. Slowly, you press it against the wood just enough to feel resistance. It doesn't slide in easily. The mast fights you. But then after a moment, it relents. You drive it halfway in, and everything changes. There's no thunderclap, no scream, no burst of flame. Just silence. Utter perfect silence. The ship stops creaking. The wind halts. Even your heartbeat seems to pause. And then with a slow, heavy sound, the mast breathes. It exhales a puff of air from the hole you made warm and damp, laced with the scent of brine sap and old parchment. You stumble back, slipping on the ropes, and catch yourself just in time. Your heart restarts with a painful thud. You climb down without looking back. That night the fog lifts, not slowly, but all at once, as if pulled back by invisible hands. Stars spill across the sky in unfamiliar constellations. The moon gleams like a coin, freshly minted, brighter than you've ever seen it. The men cheer. Some cry. Others kneel and kiss the planks. Even the captain steps onto the deck, his eyes wide with something like wonder or perhaps disbelief. There, he says, pointing west. And for the first time in weeks you see it. Land, low on the horizon, a shadow against the silver line of sea. Dark and massive and still. But before the cheers grow too loud, a cry comes from the crow's nest. The compass, the lookout shouts. The compass is wrong. You rush to the helm, and indeed the needle spins. Slowly, deliberately, it begins to turn. Not northward, not toward land, but toward the mast. That night, the journal appears. No one sees who placed it, but you find it, tucked behind a loose plank beside your hammock where your satchel usually rests. Bound in dark leather, old and flaking, the spine cracked and stitched with black thread. You know it instantly. It's the one from your dream. Your hands tremble as you open it. The first page is blank except for one line written in ink that smells of smoke and seaweed. To whoever finds this, don't listen to the roots. You turn the page and begin to read. The entries are written in a tight, looping script. Some are dated, others are not. The author never names himself, but the voice is clear, measured, weary, laced with warning. He speaks of land not found on maps, of voices beneath the sand, of trees that bleed when cut, and coral that sings at night. He speaks of the ship, not the Santa Maria, but another, older, hidden. He calls it La Boca Silente, the silent mouth, and he says it waits for others to follow. That's when you realize this journal was never meant to be hidden. It was planted, like a seed, and you were meant to find it. The journal rests in your lap, its pages soft and damp like kelp, the ink bleeding in places, yet stubbornly legible as though refusing to be silenced. You read it in stolen moments beneath your blanket, during midday heat, between chores, when the others aren't watching, while the others snore or argue or scratch at their salt-stained beards. You turn its pages as if decoding the very heartbeat of the ship. The entries shift in tone. Some are detailed, others delirious. There are sketches of trees with twisted roots and strange circular patterns of coral that glow under moonlight. One entry describes a cavern beneath a beach where voices echo in perfect mimicry of the living. Another speaks of a tide that retreats but never returns, stranding sailors who swear they walked only minutes from the shore. Several pages are written in symbols, geometric and swirling hypnotic symbols that remind you of the strange mark you saw etched into the mast. And again, a phrase returns like a chorus throughout the journal. Don't listen to the roots. You don't know what it means yet, but the warning is clear. The one who wrote this believed in what they saw. More than belief, fear, certainty, awe. One passage penned in a shaking hand grips you most of all. We thought the island uncharted, but it was unvisited for a reason. The trees were not trees. They had mouths below. The birds repeated back our voices days before we spoke them. We made the fire circle. We carved prayers into bark. We hung mirrors. Still it came. Still it listened. Still it learned. You read that paragraph 3 times, unable to blink, until your vision starts to swim. You shut the journal, heart racing, and slide it back into the folds of your hammock as though it were a venomous thing. Above you, the ship lets out a single slow groan, a ripple as if it heard what you just read. And perhaps it had. Your next duty sends you to the lower hold, the belly of the ship, the place even seasoned sailors avoid unless absolutely necessary. There the air turns thick and fungal, the wood slick with condensation. You go with a lantern in hand, its flame trembling more than usual. You're tasked with inspecting water barrels for leaks. But as you crouch beside the last one, something clicks beneath your foot. You look down. One of the floorboards is slightly ajar. You pry it gently. Beneath a hollow pocket, not deep, but inside it, resting on a cloth the color of ash, is a figurine, no taller than your thumb. Carved from bone or ivory, impossible to tell. Its face is smoothed away, leaving only a swirling spiral in place of features. You pick it up, and a shiver runs up your arm. You don't tell anyone. You slip it into your satchel right beside the journal and the carpenter's nail. Your personal reliquary grows heavier by the day. Later, as you lie in your hammock, you hear the whisper again. Not in your ears, but inside your thoughts. You are where you were meant to be, not a threat. Not quite comfort either, but a truth. And that somehow is worse. The days blend. You grow quiet. The others begin to notice. One of the older boys, Tomas, jostles you during the midday meal. "You look like you saw a ghost," he mutters through a half-eaten strip of salted pork. You don't respond. Or maybe he adds, smirking, "You are one." You stand abruptly and leave the galley. You don't look back. Let them laugh. The cook watches you go and says nothing. But the next day, he hands you an extra crust of bread with a grunt and a glance that says, "I know more than I say." You eat in silence and return to your journal. New entries now shimmer under your fingers. One recounts the discovery of a songline, a term the writer uses repeatedly to describe a path carved not by footsteps, but by vibration, sound, and memory. The line he writes is ancient, not man-made, discovered, not invented, and it is etched into the land like a melody etched into wax. Another entry includes a crude map. Lines snake outward from a central spiral. No scale, no names, just the same symbol, 4 dots around a split circle marked at the center. You stare at that symbol long after the candle burns down to a nub, and then you feel it, a soft hum beneath your ribs. You are on the songline now. That night, the ship lurches suddenly, as if struck by something vast and unseen. Men shout ropes, snap a lantern falls, and nearly ignites the canvas. You're thrown against the wall of the galley, scraping your shoulder, but you barely register the pain. Because through the chaos, the mast begins to glow, faint, golden, just at the seams. Not fire, not light, something older, an invitation. You run toward it. The sailors shout at you, curse you, but you don't hear them. The hum drowns them out. The journal in your satchel feels hot, the figurine rattling against the nail. You reach the mast and press your hand to the spot where you once saw the symbol. It pulses. You press the journal to the wood. Nothing happens. Then, a click. The mast splits. Not violently, not loudly. It opens like a flower, like a door. Inside, hollow and dark, is a chamber no one knew existed. Just wide enough for a boy to crawl inside. Which is, of course, what you do. You're surrounded by wood. Ancient, fragrant, almost soft. The space smells of pine tar salt and something sweet like rotting herbs. Your lantern casts a flickering light revealing carvings etched into the walls, words in a dozen scripts, none you recognize. Spirals, stars, trees with their roots exposed and tangled into knots. At the center, affixed with old iron nails, is a second journal, smaller, bound in green leather curling at the edges. You reach out and the wood beneath your knees hums louder. When you touch the journal, everything stills. The ship stops. No wind, no voices, no breath. The candle flickers and then steadies. You open the journal. Inside a single page, the roots reach deeper than you know. The ship is not a ship. The land is not land. You will find the mouth beneath the singing coral. When it opens, remember, only silence may pass. The page ends. You close the book. The space begins to contract. Gently, urgently. You crawl out just in time. The mast seals behind you. The glow fades. The ship groans. You look up and see that no one else has noticed. They're still scrambling from the lurch. Only the cook stands still staring at you. He nods once, and then turns away. That night you dream of the coral. It rises in spirals from black sand, singing without sound. You walk barefoot through it, toward a mouth in the earth, ringed with barnacles and stone teeth. As you approach, your own voice is taken from you, not by force, but by agreement. You give it, and the mouth opens, inside roots, twisting, pulsing alive, and somewhere in the dark, the song line. You wake with your face wet from tears, and for once no voice in your head, only your own, and it is quiet. The sky has lost its shape. You notice it first at dawn, not the soft blue bloom of morning you're used to, but a muddled swirl of colors that can't decide what time of day it wants to be. The clouds no longer drift, but coil, as if waiting for something. Birds. Once your only reassurance that the world beyond the ship still existed, have disappeared completely. Even the waves move differently now, no longer in rolling rhythms, but in sudden jagged shifts, like the twitch of a sleeping creature. You're afraid, though, you say nothing. Fear has become a private language aboard the Santa Maria, spoken not with words, but with silence, with side glances, with the refusal to meet someone's eyes for too long. You speak it fluently now. The journal lies beside you, pages fluttering in windless air. You no longer count entries. You've read and reread every passage, memorized the sketches, copied some of the symbols onto scraps of cloth you keep hidden in your satchel. The author, unnamed lost, has become your companion. His voice lives between the lines, sometimes lucid, sometimes frantic, often contradictory. Today you find a new section, pages that hadn't been there the day before. The ink is fresh, still wet. You touch it, it smears. The handwriting is different now, slanted, urgent. You don't remember writing it, and yet, something in your hand aches in recognition, like the soreness that comes from gripping a quill too tightly for too long. It's not just the land that waits. It's not just the sea that listens. The mast remembers. The roots remember. We walked here before. We fell. We are walking again. You stare at the page for a long time. Are the dreams leaking into the journal? Or is the journal leaking into you? Later that afternoon, while repairing a torn section of sailcloth, the wind picks up sharply its first true gust in days. It comes from the wrong direction, from inland, but you're still at sea. The wind carries a sound. With it, not a voice, not a word, a chime. High-pitched, clear, repetitive. Not like bells, more like glass touched by a wet finger. A sound you shouldn't be hearing in open water. The crew stirs. Some stand, others freeze. And above, in the crow's nest, a sailor screams. You race up the ladder 2 steps at a time, ignoring shouted protests behind you. When you reach the top, the lookout is clutching the rim of the nest, his eyes wide and wet, staring down at something on the deck. You follow his gaze. It's a woman, standing at the center of the ship, tall, robed, barefoot. No one knows where she came from. She is not wet. Her hair does not stir in the wind. Her face is partly hidden beneath a hood, but what little you can see is wrong, not deformed, not monstrous, just too perfect, like a sculpture carved by someone who has never actually seen a human face. She doesn't speak. She lifts a hand and points directly at the mainmast. Then she vanishes, not in a blink, not in a puff. She simply ceases to be, as if the moment she was no longer looked at, she had never been there at all. Panic erupts below. Some men drop their tools. Others clutch rosaries. A few rush to the captain's quarters, demanding answers. The air crackles with tension like a thunderstorm waiting to descend. You remain still, because you already understand what this means. The mast has been marked, again, and this time everyone saw it. The captain calls for calm. His voice, once regal and sure, now wavers with each sentence. He speaks of visions, of endurance, of destiny. He blames the fog, the sea, the strain of exploration. But no one listens. They remember the stories whispered in Palos before departure. They remember the omen of the tangled net that couldn't be untied. They remember the cook's dog who refused to board and was never seen again. That night, 2 sailors try to abandon ship on a rowboat. By morning, only the boat returns, empty, drifting, its oars neatly tied in a bundle. Your dreams worsen. You stand in a forest, tall, leafless trees whose bark is covered in eyes. Each time you move, they follow you. You hear whispers not from the mouths of people, but from beneath your feet. The soil pulses. You reach a clearing. There's a well. Its mouth is ringed with coral. Inside, darkness hums like breath. You lean in. Something whispers your name. You wake with your throat raw from screaming, your fingers bleeding, clutching a splinter of wood shaped exactly like the figurine in your satchel. You didn't carve it. You don't know where it came from, but you keep it. The fog returns by midday. Thicker, hungrier. The sun is erased. Light seems to emanate from the mist itself, a sickly yellow-gray that settles into your bones. The ship slows, as if pushing against something denser than water. Then land. No announcement. No sighting from the crow's nest. Just there, suddenly, all around you. Jungle, shoreline, stone. No island, no shape, just fragments. A beach appears off the port side, ringed with sand as red as rust. Behind it, trees, black thin like arms reaching up from a grave. A ridge of coral glows faintly in the shallows, pulsing in time with the ocean's breath, and far inland movement. Not animals, not humans, just movement. Rippling, shifting, watching. The captain gives the order to anchor. No one cheers, no one moves. It's not excitement anymore. It's dread. A small party prepares to disembark. You're not meant to go. You're a cabin boy, barely older than a bundle of rope. But the cook stops you as you pass and presses something into your hand. A scrap of cloth. Drawn on it, the same spiral symbol inked in blood. You go, he says. You're already part of it. You don't argue. You step into the skiff with 6 other soldiers, a priest, a mapmaker, a sailor who speaks 3 tongues but never dreams. The route ashore is silent. Even the oars make no splash. The water moves away from the boat, clearing a path. The red sand crunches beneath your boots like bone. The trees do not sway. They listen. You feel their attention like a weight behind your ribs. You walk inland. The priest mutters prayers under his breath. The soldiers grip their swords, though they don't raise them. The mapmaker sketches quickly, his hands shaking. The sailor glances around like a hunted thing. You pass beneath branches that bleed, sap the color of old rust. Birds call your names in voices not their own. And then, without warning, the coral appears. A ring of it. Tall, blooming, humming. Exactly as it was in your dream. Exactly as the journal described. No one dares step inside the ring. The priest tries first hand raised cross high, but as soon as he crosses the coral's threshold, he drops to his knees. Not in pain, in awe, he begins to sing, a single note, clear, high, the same chime you heard in the wind days before. Then he slumps forward, dead. The others scream. You do not, because you hear something beneath the note, a rhythm, the same hum. You step forward. The others try to stop you. They fail. You walk into the ring. Nothing hurts. No force stops you. Inside you see it. The well, just like in the dream. Carved in stone, rimmed in coral, humming with presence. And on the stone etched deep, the spiral. 4 dots, split circle. You kneel. Place your hand on the stone. It is warm. It knows you. And then the root moves, just beneath your palm, coiling, waiting, welcoming. You do not scream. You do not speak. You listen. And it begins to tell you what comes next. You remain kneeling at the edge of the coral ring, your hand pressed against the stone lip of the well, the root below, twitching like a sleeping muscle under the skin of the earth. The stone is warmer than any rock has a right to be in the shade of a black-leafed forest, and beneath that warmth lies a steady, pulsing rhythm. Not a heartbeat. Not quite. It's more like a memory playing itself over and over again, buried deep within the coral-veined soil and echoing through the marrow of your fingers. The others do not approach. The priest's body still lies in the red sand behind you. Unmoved, his eyes open and glassy, staring skyward. The soldier, with the crooked nose. Gomez maybe has begun to back away, muttering in rapid bursts, a prayer perhaps, or a curse. The mapmaker has stopped drawing altogether, his quill held frozen in midair, as if he has forgotten how it works. The sailor who spoke 3 tongues now speaks none. He simply stands with his mouth half open, the beginnings of a scream caught in his throat. Only you are still moving. Your other hand rises slow as dusk and brushes the edge of the spiral etched into the well stone. The groove is shallow, but firm, worn smooth by centuries of weather and touch. You trace it once clockwise, then again counterclockwise. As you complete the second rotation, the hum beneath you deepens, not louder, lower, like something massive shifting further below, pushing sound upward through stone and root, through coral and time, and then a voice. Not loud, not external, but clear. You are not the first. You close your eyes. You do not speak. You do not move away. The voice continues. There was a ship before this one, and one before that, and another before that. Always they come. Always they return. Always they forget. Your breath catches in your throat. But you little one, you are listening. You are hearing the bones of the world. You open your eyes. The clearing hasn't changed. The trees still lean inward as if trying to glimpse what you see. The coral pulses gently now, its light softer casting shadows that spiral outward from your feet. You feel something beneath the surface shift a long, deliberate movement, as if a tendril has uncoiled and begun to climb toward the surface. You pull your hand away. The hum ceases instantly. So does the warmth. Silence returns. Not dead silence, but expectant, as though the very air has paused to see what you will do next. Behind you, the sailor finally finds his voice. "We shouldn't be here," he says. His voice is thin, ragged. "We have to go back." The mapmaker nods, and then all at once, the group begins to retreat, clumsy and uncoordinated. They do not run, not openly, but you see it in the way they move their feet, barely lifting from the ground, their heads constantly turning. They are trying to outrun something they can't name. You remain behind for one final breath, just long enough to place the figurine from your satchel onto the edge of the well. It stands upright on its own. And then you follow. The return to the ship is faster, though the forest seems longer. The trees do not whisper this time. The birds remain silent. No wind, no chirp, no scuttle of insect feet on bark. Just the crunch of boots on red sand and the irregular gasps of frightened men. The boat rocks gently in the shallows untouched. As you step into it, you glance back. The forest hasn't changed, but now there are eyes between the trees. Not glowing, not monstrous, just present. Watching, waiting. Back aboard the Santa Maria, the crew listens without interrupting as the soldiers describe what they saw. The captain, gaunt and twitching, stands with both hands gripping the rail, his knuckles white. He nods occasionally, but never speaks. The cook listens from the shadows, hands folded, eyes closed. You wonder what he sees behind those lids. When the tale is done, the captain clears his throat. "We stay anchored," he says. Murmurs rise. He silences them with a look. No further expeditions, no more landings. We wait, we observe, and we record. A bold order given the state of things. But he is the captain. And for now at least, that still means something. The others disperse, some to tasks, others to prayer. A few simply lean over the rail and stare at the coastline as though trying to memorize the shape of their own fear. You go below deck, to the mast. You've begun sleeping near it now, curled in the shadow of its base like a cat seeking warmth. You're not the only one who feels the ship changing, but you're the only one who knows how to listen to it. The journal grows heavier with each passing day, not physically, but in meaning. The longer you carry it, the more it feels like an artifact, not a tool. You begin to believe the entries shift themselves when you're not looking. A sentence you remember on page 4 has now migrated to page 6. Sketches have multiplied roots, spirals, and now mouths ringed in coral and etched with pictograms of unknown origin. One entry new and inked in your own handwriting, though you have no memory of writing it, reads, "The mast is a finger, the ship is a hand, the root is a mouth, the song is a name. When the name is spoken, the hand will close. You do not understand, not yet, but you feel it, that there is a pattern, that all this, your presence, the voyage, the journal, the voice beneath the well, is not chaos. It is choreography. You are not lost. You are being led. A week passes. The ship does not move. No wind fills the sails. No tide pulls the hull. The crew grows thin, not from hunger, but from waking dreams, from whispered names spoken by mouths they cannot find. They begin to mark their bodies with symbols, crude spirals copied from the mast, the well, the journal. The cook now wears a necklace of coral. The sailor with the 3 tongues speaks only in riddles, and the captain no longer appears by day. You wake one morning to find a gift placed beside your hammock, a piece of bark stripped smooth with a message carved into it. When the coral sings, follow the voice that does not echo. No one claims to have left it, but the meaning is clear. The ship has chosen you. That night the coral sings, soft at first. A vibration through the hull, a whine in the nails, a shimmer in the air. Then a hum, then a chime, then music, real melodic, winding through every timber like breath. The men gather on the deck. Some weep, some dance, some leap overboard. You do not stop them. You walk to the mast and place your hand on the symbol. It opens again, and inside the chamber is different now. No longer just a hollow. It is a throat, and it is glowing. You crawl inside. The passage tightens behind you. You are swallowed whole. The tunnel is made of wood, and yet not wood. It moves, flexes, breathes. You crawl through the darkness, guided by pulses of bioluminescent light embedded in the walls. Spirals, eyes, coral veins. The air smells like the well, like memory. Like the inside of something dreaming. At the end of the passage, a room, perfectly round, lined with coral. At the center, a pool, not water, memory. It moves like ink dropped in oil, slow, swirling, reflective. You see yourself, then not yourself, then the priest, then the forest, then the well, then the figurine, then nothing, and then a face, yours, but older, etched with salt. Your mouth opens. Your reflection speaks. It opens tomorrow. You touch the surface, and everything vanishes. You're back in your hammock. The mast is sealed, but your palm is wet. And the journal's last page now reads, "The coral mouth opens." You already said yes. You awaken before dawn, long before the sky begins to hint at color, and for a moment you wonder if you've truly slept at all. The air inside the hold is heavier now, muggy damp, with more than just sea sweat or salted breeze. There's a thickness to it, like breath trapped in a bottle, and you notice with slow dawning unease that your skin carries a fine sheen of condensation, as though the walls around you have been exhaling during the night. The journal lies open across your chest. Its pages are blank, every one of them. You sit upright, your heart thudding slowly but forcefully against your ribs, and you thumb through the parchment again, front to back to front, even lifting the cover as if expecting to find something written beneath the leather spine. But there is nothing. No entries, no drawings, no symbols, no spirals, even the blood-smeared warnings, even the message about the coral and the echoless voice gone. It's as if the book has been drained, hollowed of meaning, leaving behind only the memory of the words you once read. Or worse, the memory that the words had always belonged to you. You wrap the journal in an oilskin cloth and bury it beneath your spare linens. It feels lighter now, almost weightless. And though your eyes are open, your thoughts are thick with fog, the sort that no wind can clear. You stand, stretch your legs, and head above deck. The rest of the crew is still asleep, or at least pretending to be. Dreams now are no longer private affairs. You can tell by the way men speak at breakfast snippets of identical landscapes, recurring trees with bleeding bark, the spiral shape that seems to hover just beyond comprehension. There's a look they wear now, the dreamer's half-rested, glassy-eyed, disjointed. You see it on nearly every face. Even the cook, once impenetrable and brisk, moves more slowly now. He stirs the pot longer than necessary, letting steam rise around him like smoke from a censer. He doesn't speak to you when you pass. He only presses a small satchel into your hand. "Dry root," he mutters without looking up. "For the teeth. But you've had no toothache, at least not yet. By midday, the wind has returned, but it's wrong. It whistles not from the east or west, but from below. A wind that hums through the floorboards, rattling the pegs and nails, sending faint vibrations up your spine. No one discusses it openly. The captain, when he finally appears, insists that it's merely a thermal draft caused by nearby land masses. But no one believes that. Not really. You know what it is. The ship is breathing. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but literally. The timbers expand and contract, creak and settle in a rhythm too deliberate to be dismissed. Like lungs exhaling beneath your feet, slow and steady. You place your ear to the deck and listen, and though there's no clear voice, there is cadence, like a song trying to remember its own melody. You spend the remainder of the afternoon wandering the ship with no assigned task. No one stops you. The bosun, who once barked at you for merely glancing too long at a bundle of rope, now sits cross-legged near the stern, muttering words in a language you've never heard. You pass him. He doesn't raise his eyes. At the prow, you find the sailor who never dreamed, now wrapped in cloth, chanting lines from the Lord's Prayer backward. His eyes are open but unseeing. His lips move like they're being guided by something outside of him, something old, and overhead the sails ripple despite the still sea. There is wind where there should be none, movement without source, sound without echo. The ship continues to breathe, and you continue to listen. The mast calls to you again that evening, not with words, with urgency. You stand at its base, eyes closed, palm pressed gently to the grain. The texture of the wood is coarser than before, as though it has begun to grow inch by inch from the inside out. You feel its heartbeat now thudding in tandem with your own, no longer faint, but steady and strong like drums beneath a procession. You close your eyes, and the hum returns, not external, internal, like blood remembering its rhythm. You don't crawl into the mast again. You don't need to. This time it opens for you without motion. The passage doesn't reveal itself physically, it unfolds within your mind. A vision. You're walking through the coral again, but this time you are not alone. Shadows flank you, tall, formless things with no eyes, no mouths, only the suggestion of limbs and the sound of rustling leaves in windless air. You carry the journal, except it is no longer made of paper and leather. It is flesh. Its pages pulse. You reach the well. It opens, inside a staircase, carved from the roots of a tree that no longer exists. You descend, deeper, farther, until light no longer touches you. There at the bottom is a room, a circle of stone. At the center a shape. You can't describe it, not fully. It is part coral, part vine, part eye. It does not move, but you know it is aware. You step closer. It speaks with no sound. The first mouth opens soon. The others must be fed. You wake in your hammock with sweat soaking your collar. You reach for the journal, still blank. But beneath it, tucked in your satchel, wrapped in a dry cloth, you find something else. A new page, drawn in a hand not your own. A map, the coastline, the coral ring, and below it tunnels, dozens of them, branching, root-like. And at the center, the symbol again, spiral, split, 4 dots. Your fingers tremble. You fold the page and return it to your satchel. You no longer wonder how it got there. You only wonder how long it's been waiting for you to find it. When night falls, the crew gathers, not for orders, not for prayer, but because the coral is glowing, visible, even from the ship. Soft amber halos pulsing from the shoreline, like beacons, or like breath beneath sand. The sound returns as well. Not music, not entirely, but that same hum. It wraps around you like fog. You watch the others stand silently along the rail, staring at the shore. Some weep, others laugh. A few begin to chant in tongues that none of you should know, but you all know them now. The cook approaches you. His eyes are red. He smells of smoke and moss. He does not ask for permission. He presses something into your palm. A tooth, too large to be human, etched with the spiral. He leans in, whispers. The mast doesn't speak in words. It speaks in hunger. You do not reply. You look to the captain. He is already gone. No one saw him leave, but in his cabin they find only his coat, and a perfect spiral burned into the wall just above the bed. You don't sleep. Not truly. Instead, you dream with your eyes open. You see the mast grow, branch upward, split into limbs and tendrils that reach skyward like a cathedral of flesh and wood. The sails become wings, the rigging veins. The ship is no longer a vessel. It is a body. It was always a body. You were always inside it. You understand now. The mast was never wood. It was a memory, a fossil, a root waiting to awaken. And it is awakening. You can feel it in your chest. The heartbeat, the hum, the slow twisting of something deep inside you that has always known this moment would come. You rise. The choral sings louder. The sky does not change color, yet it brightens. You walk to the edge of the deck, and below the sea is gone. In its place roots, miles of them, tangled, knotted, breathing, reaching up toward the hull, cradling the Santa Maria like a nest. And at the center of that nest, where the well once stood, is now a mouth, open, waiting. You feel the journal in your hand heavy again. You open it. This time one phrase glows upon the page. Only silence may pass. And you know what it means. Not the absence of sound, but the end of questioning. You walk to the mast one last time. You place your hand upon it. It opens, and you walk inside. The moment you pass into the mast, it closes behind you. Not abruptly, not like a door slamming shut, but like a tide rising behind your back, sealing your passage with soft pressure and the sound of old wood sighing. You are not afraid, not in the way you once were when you first touched the spiral, not in the way that made your breath catch and your limbs stiffen. This fear is different now. It is not a question. It is an answer. It is not a choice. It is an arrival. Inside the mast, there is no darkness. There is depth. A kind of layered twilight folds around you. Not black or empty, but colored with browns and greens, deep ochres and velvety indigos. Light pulses from thin vein-like filaments that run along the inner walls, spiraling upward and downward in a slow, steady motion, like the beating of gills. The surface under your palms is not rough, but slick and warm smooth like moss-worn stone, or a leaf turned waxy from the damp. The tunnel curves. It descends not steeply, but gradually, as if inviting you to walk rather than forcing you to crawl. You take cautious steps, your feet landing soundlessly on the path that is formed beneath you. And as you move deeper, the air thickens, not unpleasantly, but with a density that suggests you're moving into something more rather than simply going down. Each breath tastes of brine and pine resin and something sweet and mineral, like the inside of a seashell, left too long beneath the moonlight. You do not know how long you walk. Time thins here, stretches in slow ribbons that flutter at the edge of your awareness. You see flashes along the walls as you pass faces etched into the grain mouths, open mid-speech eyes wide with what might be wonder or terror or both. You do not stop to inspect them closely. You already know what they are. Memories, not yours. The ships, or perhaps the masts, or perhaps both if they are still different things. You pause only once when you come to a branching point. The tunnel splits in two, one path, veering left, the other right. You stand in the juncture listening. There is no sound, no breeze, no sign. But then you remember the tooth. You reach into your pocket and draw it out the two large fang marked with the spiral. It thrums faintly in your palm, and when you hold it out between the two tunnels, it tilts slightly to the right. Not pulled, drawn. You nod without knowing why and follow the tooth's suggestion. The path narrows. The light dim softens, begins to swirl. You begin to feel the presence of others, though you see no one. It's not footsteps or breath that alert you, but something more primal, more rooted in instinct. A shift in temperature, a tremble in the walls, a kind of awareness that surrounds you now like you've stepped into a room mid-conversation and everyone has gone quiet to stare. Shapes begin to form in the walls, figures carved in low-relief hands raised mouths open, as if caught mid-song. They seem older than the ship, older than wood, older even than the idea of carving. You touch one. It's cold, but not lifeless, not dead, more like sleeping stone. You continue. Around a bend, the tunnel opens suddenly into a chamber, wide, circular, high-ceilinged and luminous with that same inner glow, yet more intense now, like sunlight filtered through seawater. The space is filled with roots. Some grow from the walls. Others dangle from the ceiling like chandeliers made of tendons and coral. In the center of the room, hovering slightly above the floor, is a sphere, not large about the size of a human skull, but made of interwoven strands of something neither metal nor plant. It pulses slowly, with a dull golden light. You step closer. The journal in your pocket stirs, not physically but consciously. You feel it wake. You draw it out. Its pages are filled again. Words you've never read. Sketches that weren't there before. Languages you don't recognize but somehow understand. You open to the middle, a page with only one line. This is the seed. You look back to the sphere. It turns on its own. Not spinning, but rotating inwardly as if folding time into itself. You step closer. Place the journal beneath it. The sphere lowers slowly, reverently, and rests gently against the pages. The moment they touch, light bursts outward, not blinding but pure, and everything changes. You are standing on a shore, not the ship, not the forest, a different shore. The sand is black and glassy, lined with bones that look like trees, and trees that look like bones. The ocean here is not water, but memory flowing in slow waves of faces, places, voices. The sky above is filled with spirals, all rotating in different directions. Beside you stands the figure, the woman, the one who appeared on the deck. She no longer hides her face. It is your face, older, tired, smiling. She does not speak, but she offers her hand. You take it. Together you walk across the shore, the waves licking at your heels. Each step reveals a new memory, not yours, but real. A ship built from whale bones, sailing under a sky with 3 suns. A village carved into coral reefs where children sing to shells. A tree that grows only when no one looks at it. You see them all. You carry them all. Until you arrive at the well. Yes, the well. The one from your dreams. But now there is no fear. Only understanding. You kneel before it. Place your hand on the rim. And this time when it opens, you descend. Not into darkness, but into light. The vision ends. You're back in the chamber. The sphere is gone. The journal is closed. And before you now stands the cook. How he got here you do not ask. You are no longer surprised by the movements of those who belong to the spiral. He holds out the coral figurine. It is different now, larger, etched in gold. He speaks for the first time in days. You fed it. Now you must name it. You don't know what he means. Not with your mind, but your bones know. You take the figurine, hold it above your heart, and whisper, silence. The roots above you quiver. The chamber brightens. The spiral on the wall begins to turn. You close your eyes and feel the mouth open, not to consume, but to remember. There are no words to capture the sensation that unfolds the moment you speak the name. Not the name given to you at birth. Not the name scrawled onto the brittle parchment by a quartermaster with a cracked reed pen and calloused hands, but this name, the name that came not from your throat, but from the mast, the journal, the humming roots, from silence itself. You didn't invent it. You remembered it. Or perhaps you were simply chosen to speak it aloud, the way a bell is rung by the wind, rather than by a hand. Silence. The moment it leaves your lips, the world shifts not violently, not like an earthquake or a storm surge, but with the solemn grace of a lock finally turned in its rightful keyhole. The chamber does not tremble. It breathes. The glow inside the root-veined walls pulses brighter, and the spiral embedded in the ceiling slowly begins to rotate. Not in a rush, not spinning like a wheel or a whirlwind, but turning like a great celestial body, ancient and inevitable. The cook does not speak again. He merely bows not to you, but to the space behind you, and then turns and vanishes into the wood, passing between two roots, as though they were curtains in a forgotten theater. You are not alarmed by this. In fact, it feels right, as though everything you've seen so far, every sailor's prayer, every journal line, every drop of red sand and fragment of forgotten chant, has been preparing you for the reality that this place does not follow the laws you once understood. You sit cross-legged on the floor journal, cradled in your lap like an offering bowl. The figurine rests atop the closed pages, its new golden form glinting in the chamber's warm light. You gaze into it, and in its curved spiral lines and delicate edges, you see not an idol, but a mirror. It holds no reflection, but it reflects you just the same. Not your face, your path. You do not know how long you sit there. Time does not pass here, as it does aboard the ship or under the sun. But eventually, something changes. You hear a sound, not a hum this time, nor a voice from within. It's a knock. Faint, rhythmic, 3 beats. A pause. 3 more. It's coming from above, from the mast, from the deck. You rise, clutching the figurine and slipping the journal under your arm. The roots part for you now without resistance, as if recognizing your passage, as if remembering your touch. You ascend the spiral tunnel, retracing your steps, not with confusion, but with clarity. This time you do not count your breaths. You do not glance over your shoulder. You walk like someone who has seen the map etched behind the eyelids of gods. You emerge beneath a twilight sky, though the sun has not moved. The colors above are bruised and bleeding swaths of plum and rose streaks of copper, as if the heavens themselves have been wounded by what now rises from the island. The Santa Maria is no longer the ship you once knew. She stands taller now, more curved with new ribs growing from her sides, like the outstretched fingers of a great wooden hand. Her sails shimmer faintly with bioluminescent veins. The mainmast glows at its base, and around her hull, the ocean has withdrawn entirely, leaving only exposed coral and thick roots tangled in patterns no cartographer could ever transcribe. The crew, or what remains of it, stands in silence along the rails. Some bow their heads, some weep, some sing softly in melodies that rise and fall like tides upon memory. They see you. They part for you. You walk among them like a messenger returning from the underworld, not reborn, not triumphant, but irrevocably changed. You pass the first mate, who once barked at you for being slow with a coil of rope. Now his eyes are hollow and reverent. You pass the sailor, who never dreamed, now smiling faintly, his face calm for the first time. You pass the cook, though he is no longer physical. You feel him as presence, as warmth on your right side, like a sunbeam cast by a memory. You approach the prow. There in the place where a figurehead once stood is something new. The spiral, carved into the wood, etched with gold, surrounded by coral and lichen. At its center, an opening just wide enough for a hand. You raise yours. You place your palm against it, and you remember. You remember the first time you saw the sea, not this one, but the true one, the sea that lies behind all others, a horizonless stretch of thought and hunger, dotted not with waves, but with mouths, some closed, some open, some singing, some silent. You remember the ship, not the Santa Maria, but the other one, the first one. The one you saw in your dream, forged from whale ribs and shadow, whose mast was a tower of bone and coral. You remember standing at its helm. You remember calling lightning from the deep. You remember fire that sang your name. You remember the well, how it split the ground not vertically, but horizontally, revealing layers of history like slices of fruit. You remember stepping across centuries as though they were puddles. You remember holding the tongue of a god in your hand. You remember the silence before creation. And then most powerfully of all, you remember your true name. Not the one whispered by mothers or scratched onto parchment. The name the coral gave you. The name the roots sang when you dreamed. The name written in the hum of the mast. You speak it aloud. You feel it vibrate through the spiral. The opening at its center opens further, not with hinges or force, but like a pupil dilating. And from within, a voice answers, not in language, but in feeling. It welcomes you. It knows you. It has always known you. You are the cabin boy. You are the witness. You are the vessel through which memory is carried and through which silence becomes sound. And now it is time to complete the circle. The deck tilts slightly beneath your feet, not from waves, from transformation. The ship begins to change again, this time from the inside out. The sails begin to curl into themselves, becoming thick, translucent membranes that pulse faintly with light. The mast sheds its bark, revealing veins of coral and silver beneath. The hull creaks not in protest, but in song. You understand now this ship was never meant to return to Spain. It was never meant to find gold or chart new lands. It was meant to awaken, and you were always meant to be its voice. You turn to face the crew one last time. They watch you eyes wide. Some smile, some fall to their knees. Others vanish not dramatically, but softly, fading like chalk drawings beneath a slow rain. You do not weep. There is no grief in this. Only release. Only remembrance. The ship begins to rise. Not into the sky, not toward heaven, but through the sea. Beneath it, deeper, toward the origin. You close your eyes. And as the coral wraps around the hull, as the roots pull you downward into the song line, you begin to hum. Not a tune. Not a lullaby. The spiral, translated into sound. The name of the mast, the name of the mouth, the name of you. And the sea listens, and the world shifts, and the silence is no longer empty. It is full. What happens beneath the sea cannot be recorded in maps, not because the locations are hidden, but because they are not static. They shift, not with tides or tectonics, but with intention. The roots of the world you learn are not merely underground tendrils anchoring trees and holding soil together. They are roots, channels of memory and meaning, conduits that pulse not with water or sap, but with thought. You are no longer sailing in the traditional sense. The Santa María, or whatever she has become now, is not a ship in the water. She is a vessel of descent, not into depth, but into understanding. The sea closes over you like a curtain. And though you expect darkness, there is none. The ocean is lit from below by a dull amber glow that radiates from the coral structures that rise like towers from the ocean floor. They are not reefs, not natural outcrops. These are architectural, deliberate, spiraled monoliths and buttresses of petrified kelp, glistening bone, and what appears to be glass grown into impossible shapes. Spirals within spirals, arches curved in golden ratios, statues whose faces shift when unobserved. The ship does not drift. She follows. You can feel it now, the tug of the song line beneath the keel, vibrating in slow, deliberate pulses. It does not hum like before. This is a different sound, more intricate, more precise. It's not a note, but a phrase. Not a phrase, but a command. Beneath the deck, the remaining crew no longer functions as individuals. Some chant softly. Others weave knots into the ropes that glow faintly in patterns resembling constellations. A few sit still, eyes closed, hands resting on the planks, as if listening through their fingertips. You descend into the hold, carrying the journal under your arm and the coral figurine now affixed to a cord around your neck. The spiral on its chest has begun to spin slowly, faintly in time with the deep pulses coming from the ocean below. It is not mechanical. It is alive. Below deck, the walls have changed. The grain of the wood has stretched into branching patterns, echoing the shapes of the tunnels you crawled through within the mast. The knots in the timber resemble eyes, though they never blink. If you place your hand to the boards, you can feel them respond, tensing slightly, as though bracing for something. They are preparing. You reach the chamber near the keel. Once a storage space for salted pork and dried lentils, it is now something else entirely, a shrine. There is no other word for it. In the center sits the sphere you once saw embedded in the mast's heart. It is larger now, perhaps the size of a melon, and glows more intensely as though it has been fed. Around it, sailors have placed small offerings, coils of rope braided into spirals, bits of shell etched with runes, even lengths of hair tied with fishbone needles. A few of the offerings pulse with light. You step into the chamber. No one stops you. In fact, they seem to shift aside instinctively, clearing your path, as if they've known all along that this moment was yours. You kneel before the sphere. You open the journal. Its pages now seem endless. Each one leads to another, and then another, fractal-like entries that repeat themes and ideas with subtle variations, like stanzas in a song too vast to be remembered by a single mind. You read as much as you can, taking in sketches of structures, like the ones rising from the ocean around you. Each is labeled in a language that has no letters, only shapes, flowing, curling, merging forms that carry both tone and meaning simultaneously. You recognize the spiral in many of them, but always at the center of the illustration is a circle, empty, waiting. You close the book. The sphere hums louder. You reach out and place your hand upon it. Instantly, your vision shifts. You stand upon a platform of translucent stone, hovering above a city submerged beneath a black sea that is not water, but memory, liquid recollection, moving in waves of scent, color, and sound. Towers rise from below, not built, but grown their surfaces, breathing slowly, drawing in and exhaling pulses of phosphorescent mist. This is no dream. It is a transmission. The city is ancient, not in years, but in concept. It predates calendars, predates architecture. It is the memory of civilization itself, preserved in coral and consciousness. Around you float tendrils of light, threads of awareness that brush your skin and feed images directly into your mind. You see people, but not quite. Humanoid forms of shimmering scale and woven tendons walking barefoot across platforms made of memory. They do not speak with mouths. They sing without air. One approaches you. It has no eyes, only spirals where eyes might be. It reaches out, and you are shown a circle of stones on a distant island, its center hollow, pulsing with light. A tree with roots that stretch across continents, feeding off grief. A ship carved from silence carrying a captain who never existed. A child climbing into the heart of a mast. You blink. Back in the chamber, sailors are bowing now. Not to you, but to the sphere which glows bright enough to cast shadows. The spiral on your coral pendant spins faster. You understand what's happening. The ship is not just descending, it is aligning. The memory you've unlocked has drawn it into phase with something below. The roots, the coral, the well, the mouth. They were not symbols. They were instructions. They were doorways. And the spiral is the key. You rise, climb to the upper deck. The surface water is gone entirely now. The ship floats within a space of luminous tendrils suspended between coral towers that extend infinitely in every direction. And at the center, the mouth. Not a maw of teeth and tongue, not a throat, but a threshold, a perfect circle etched in gold, hovering between two curling towers of petrified reef. Inside it a vortex, not violent, not spinning, but unfolding like a flower blooming in slow motion. Light moves across its surface in intricate loops. The spiral is now fully open. You walk to the prow. The crew gathers behind you. No one speaks. You lift the journal, hold it above your head. It dissolves, not into ash or water or wind, but into memory. Each page becomes a thread of light wrapping around the spiral, feeding it, completing it, and the mouth opens wider. Inside a city, not the one you saw. Another, new, or perhaps remembered differently. You turn, face the crew. They nod. One by one they walk into the mouth, vanishing in light, not consumed, integrated. You go last. As your foot crosses the threshold, you feel the ship exhale one final time. The mast dims, the roots withdraw, and the mouth closes, not behind you, but within you. You awaken not with a start, not with a jolt or gasp, but as if lifting your consciousness from warm water, slow, suspended, nearly weightless. The light around you is the first thing you notice. It is not sunlight, not moonlight, nor the amber glow of lanterns or coral. It is a soft, pulsing luminescence that breathes with the calm rhythm of a living organism. It does not blind, nor cast shadows. It simply is, and you understand immediately that this place does not rely on heat to illuminate, but on memory so thick it becomes visible, curling gently in the air, like mist formed from old breath and older thoughts. You are lying on a surface that feels at once solid and forgiving. Not quite stone, not quite wood, something like pressed moss wrapped in soft resin, yielding slightly beneath your weight. You sit up slowly, and the first sound you hear is not the creak of timber, or the rush of waves, or the calling of gulls, but the quiet hush of leaves shifting in windless air. You recognize that sound, not from your time aboard the Santa Maria, but from your dreams, from the visions passed through the mast, and the journal, and the bloodline of coral. It is the sound of the roots. You are no longer on the ship. You are in the city below, and the city below is not made of stone. It is made of time. You rise to your feet. The space around you expands without clear boundaries, yet there is no disorientation. The architecture of this place does not obey Euclidean lines or angles, but flows like living sculpture. Columns rise from the floor, but they are not carved. They have grown like trees, spun from pearl and petrified kelp. The floor is a mosaic of bioluminescent panels, each one flickering with shifting patterns that you realize are not static designs, but stories, living scenes captured in motion, repeating over and over in endless loops of luminous memory. Each step you take reveals a new scene. A figure planting a spiral-shaped seed in a desert. A ship being built not by hands, but by sound. Its beams rising and assembling in rhythm with a chant that echoes from nowhere. A child yourself. Someone else walking through a forest where each tree opens its trunk to show a different version of the world. As you walk, your fingertips brush against the walls, which feel warm and responsive. Symbols emerge beneath your touch, spirals, yes, but also stars, waves, and mouths open in silent song. You pause before one wall where an image begins to unfold. It shows a group of people gathered around a shallow pool. Each of them kneels, places their palm on the surface, and vanishes not in a flash or burst, but as though being invited inside. The pool absorbs them like parchment takes ink, each life a line written into the page of the city's long story. You press your hand to the wall. Nothing happens, but you feel seen. You continue. Eventually, you come to what appears to be a hall, not long or narrow, but circular, amphitheater-like. At its center floats a sphere, not unlike the one that glowed aboard the ship, but vastly larger and comprised of many interwoven strands that appear to be both plant and light crystal and bone. It turns, slowly exuding warmth and a low vibration that settles deep into your chest. Around its base are figures, not human, not monstrous, forms tall and elegant, each clothed in layered garments that resemble draped seaweed and spun metal. Their faces are featureless, save for patterns, spirals, and branching lines that shimmer faintly. Their hands have too many fingers, each long and jointed in unfamiliar ways, yet nothing about them feels threatening. One of them steps forward. You do not flinch. There is no fear, only recognition. It raises a hand and extends one long finger, Upon its tip floats a smaller spiral, glowing pale gold. You reach for it. The moment your fingers meet, the world falls away. You are shown a history, not in sequence, not in chapters, but all at once a flood of memory. Not your own, but theirs. You see the construction of the first song lines, pathways laid, not through geography, but through consensus, through belief, through the careful tuning of thought and silence. These routes were never meant for travel in the physical sense, but for transmission, for memory, to move between minds, between centuries, between bodies. The ships that sailed these lines were not vessels of exploration, but conductors designed to carry, not people, but meaning. You see the first spiral carved not as a symbol, but as a command to remember, to return, to realign. You see the first mast grown from a seed that had been passed from generation to generation, always hidden, always humming, until it found a boy with hands small enough to climb and a heart still soft enough to hear. You see yourself, not your face, not your body, your presence, moving through centuries, climbing masts, opening wells, walking into mouths, becoming stories, again and again, each time forgetting, each time returning, each time drawing a little closer to what lies at the core. Not truth, not answers, but resonance, a single perfect note, the name of the world. You are its echo. You awaken once more, this time standing. The figure before you lowers its hand. The spiral has vanished, but the memory remains. You speak your name aloud, your true name, the one given not by parent or priest, but by the spiral itself, whispered through wood and root and stone. The word is untranslatable, made of thought and intention, more than syllable or breath. But as it leaves your lips, the chamber around you brightens. The other figures bow, not in deference, but in recognition. You have returned, you have remembered, you have arrived. They lead you down another corridor, wide and gently curving, lined with glyphs and hanging tendrils that pulse gently as you pass. You enter a new chamber, smaller, quieter. At its center is a pool, not water, not memory, something in between. Its surface reflects not your face, but your path. Images ripple outward. You see the Santa María, now fully transformed, its hull threaded with golden roots, floating not in the sea, but in the vast calm of the space between worlds. You see the crew, what remains of them, scattered among the towers, now part of the city below, weaving threads of sound and silence into new corridors, new chambers, new lives. You see the journal now fragmented into 1,000 glowing pages, each one drifting through the city like leaves in slow wind. And you see the spiral, always the spiral, rotating slowly, beckoning you onward. You touch the pool, and it gives way, not like falling, like ascending downward, and the next part begins. But there is no fear, there is only depth. There is a kind of falling that feels like rising, a descent so smooth, so gradual, that the mind ceases to categorize it as motion at all. The pool you step into offers no resistance, no splash or ripple. It welcomes swallows, absorbs not to destroy or erase, but to translate. For the fluid is not liquid, not in any conventional sense. It is memory made viscous, knowledge folded into substance. You do not sink so much as dissolve into layers of recollection, and not merely yours. You feel them immediately, the countless others who have stepped into this same pool across centuries, across ships and forests and spirals carved into stone, each leaving a thread behind like an echo tied to a bell. You do not see their faces, but you feel their impressions. The child who followed a songline carved into the bark of desert trees. The priest who sang to a choral gate beneath the Andes. The sailor who jumped from the Santa María into the sea and did not drown, but changed. They are here, not ghosts, but continuities, and you are part of them now. Not separate, not above, not new. You are an iteration, one more circle in the spiral. The sensation of motion continues, but not downward. You pass through strata of memory, each layer more ancient than the last. There are sounds at first, long, drawn-out vowel tones vibrating at frequencies that tickle your teeth and rattle the bones in your forearms. Then come shapes, slow rotating geometries of coral, and light not drawn, but grown, not seen but known. They pass through you without leaving wounds, though you know they could. And then the oldest layer, beneath history, beneath even myth, it is not a place, it is a condition. You find yourself standing though you never felt yourself arrive. The landscape is unlike anything above. It does not resemble seafloor or temple or forest. There is no sky, yet everything is illuminated. The ground is not solid, but firm like woven fabric that supports your steps, but yields with each footfall. Above you, if it can be called above, float massive objects, not stars, not structures, but presences held aloft in slow, deliberate orbits. You do not try to name them. You know instinctively they have no name, at least not one you are meant to speak. And though there is no wind, no movement of air, you hear sound, constant and subtle, like a song stretched over a vast plain, each note held so long that it begins to unravel into color. The deeper you listen, the more you hear within the tones hidden melodies, overlapping languages, a kind of speech that transcends speech. You begin to walk. Where you are going, you do not know, but your feet know. They follow a path that is not visible, not carved into the earth, but etched into the logic of the space. Every step feels both spontaneous and preordained, like dancing to a song you've never heard, but whose rhythm you've always known. Eventually you arrive. At first glance, it looks like a stone circle, but you quickly realize it is not made of stone. The material is translucent, layered like glass, though shot through with filaments of root-like growth. It is both hard and living. A circle of upright forms, pillars, sentinel surrounds a basin filled with swirling light. The spirals are here too, engraved on each structure, some glowing, some dormant. In the center, rising from the basin like a sapling breaking through soil, is a mast. Not your mast, not the Santa Maria's, but the first mast, the origin. Its bark is woven of threads so fine they resemble hair, and at its base are dozens, perhaps hundreds of small carvings, each one depicting a different figure touching the trunk. One is tall and robed. One has 6 arms. One is just a child with no face. One is you. They are all you. They are all the same. You approach. The mast hums, not with sound but with recognition. You touch it, and the spiral opens. What follows cannot be measured in time. It is not a vision. It is a remembering. You are the mast grown from a seed of memory planted in a world that had not yet divided sea from sky. You are the coral whispering to the tides to shape the coastline of civilizations not yet born. You are the journal filled and emptied 1,000 times its words, never final, always in flux. You are the captain speaking prayers into a sail made of skin and thread, following stars that drift away when named. You are the ship built not to reach lands, but to reach you. You are the well. You are the voice that called yourself into being, and then you are none of those things. You are silence, perfect resonant silence, the kind that holds all potential, the kind that comes not before sound, but after the last note has faded. You rest in that silence, and in that rest, you become ready. The mast begins to change. You feel it beneath your hand, the shift from being into becoming. It folds inward, spirals downward, and from its center emerges a shape, an orb, no larger than your own heart, composed of memory, of hum of coral and breath and meaning. It floats, waiting. You do not question. You open your arms. It comes to you, rests against your chest, and is absorbed, not like fire, like breath returning to lungs. You inhale. You close your eyes. You exhale. And the city responds. All around you the pillars awaken. Light surges through their cores. The basin fills with sound. Not music, not language. Both. The figures you saw before the ones etched into the mast step from the stone. not as ghosts, not as apparitions, but as memory given form. They walk in a slow circle around you, humming the spiral into motion, and then each one bows, not to you, but to the memory within you, the memory you now carry. And then one by one they vanish. You are alone again, but not empty, full. So full you cannot stay here. You have become too much for this place. The path opens. You follow, upward, not physically, not spatially, but upward nonetheless. You breach the surface, and you are back, but the Santa Maria is gone. Not wrecked, not destroyed, transformed. Her roots are now part of the ocean floor. Her mast stands alone, a monument to passage. You walk across the beach, red sand just as before, but quieter, as if the land itself is listening. You sit at the edge of the well. It is closed now, but you understand. You do not need to open it again. You were the one who climbed inside. You were the one who listened. You were the one who returned, and the spiral does not end. It begins again, as it always has, as it always will, and so you wait, not for rescue, not for recognition, but for the next memory, the next voice, the next you. You remain seated at the edge of the sealed well, not because you are weary, nor because your body demands rest, but because stillness has become a form of listening. In this world, this new familiar, ancient, and unfolding world movement is not the only way forward. Sometimes it is in stillness that the spiral unwinds its next turn. You place your hands on the red sand, feeling the warmth beneath your palms. It's not sunlight that warms the earth here. It's memory slowly rising through layers of time like heat from a hearth, long since extinguished, but never fully cold. The coral rings hum faintly from beyond the trees, their pulse slower than before, as if they too are resting after an exertion. The forest surrounding you no longer leans with menace. The trees still curl inward, their roots still form mazes, and their leaves still shimmer with iridescent veins. But something fundamental has shifted in their presence. They are not watching now. They are waiting. Waiting for the next voice, the next hand to touch the spiral, the next soul to walk down into the well and return carrying silence like fire. You look down at your reflection in the well's smooth, sealed surface. The spiral symbol has now appeared on your chest, not carved, not branded, not drawn, but emerging through your skin like a birthmark blooming into its final form. It does not hurt. It simply is. You touch it lightly. It pulses once in recognition, then settles back into stillness. Not sleeping. Listening. Far behind you, down the slope of the beach, the sea has returned. Not the same sea, no longer vast and indifferent. Now it is woven with threads of meaning. From where you sit, you see spirals blooming in the tide foam traced for mere seconds before dissolving only to appear again moments later. They are not illusions. They are signals. You know now that the sea, like the ship, has always been alive. Not conscious in the way people speak or judge or plan, but alive in the deeper way. The way that coral is alive. The way that roots listen. The way that names remember themselves long after mouths have forgotten how to shape them. You rise from your place beside the well. Your body moves differently now. Your weight is the same, but your center has shifted. You walk with the slow, deliberate rhythm of someone who is not only traveling, but drawing a path with each step. Every footfall is a seed planted into the fabric of this place. Every breath a note in the spiral's ever-expanding song. You begin walking inland again, not because you must, but because there is something calling you softly from the heart of the forest. The trees part slightly ahead of you, their limbs moving just enough to make space. You do not need a map. The path is made for you as you walk. The soil darkens as you move deeper into the foliage. The air growing sweeter, tinged with scents you can't quite place. Salt ash flower petals, wet with morning dew, and something fainter, still like parchment in time. Eventually, you come upon the grove, a clearing with no canopy. The light here comes from beneath the soil, rising in gentle pulses that echo through your knees and ribs. In the center of the grove stands a structure. At first, it seems to be a tree, twisted and tall, with bark like polished obsidian and leaves like stained glass. But as you step closer, you see it is not a tree at all. It is a tower, or perhaps a chime. It is shaped like both. At its base are 8 openings, each leading into a different tunnel. Above the structure spirals upward in an impossible arc, higher than the treetops, higher than the mist. You know instinctively that this is not a destination. It is a sender. This place is not meant to hold memory. It is meant to release it. You enter the tower. The space inside is vast and hollow, like the interior of a bell. The walls are lined with panels not of wood or stone, but of something semi-transparent, shifting gently with light. Each panel hums when you walk past, and as you run your fingertips along them, they awaken, showing moments, fragmented fluid, unfinished. A boy tying a knot on a ship's rail, a woman singing into a conch shell, a mast splitting open to reveal a child's drawing, a spiral scratched onto the back of a spoon. The spiral, always returning. You climb. The interior of the tower spirals upward in a soft incline. No stairs, only a ramp. As you ascend, the hum increases in richness, not in volume, but in depth. The air begins to vibrate with meaning. You realize the tower itself is beginning to resonate with your presence. You are not simply walking into it, you are tuning it. With each step, your body aligns more closely to its frequency. You feel it in your jaw, your shoulders, your breath. At the summit, you find the instrument. It is not a machine, not a lever or panel. It is a platform open to the sky, and upon it a single stone seat. Set into the seat's arm is a depression shaped precisely to fit the spiral on your chest. You lower yourself into the seat, your hands resting naturally on the arms, your back straight, your eyes level with the open sky. You press your spiral gently into the depression, and the tower sings. Not music, not language, the spiral made audible, the shape of remembering given tone and timbre. It flows outward from the tower, spreading across the forest, the sea, the shipwreck, and the well, the coral, and the sky. Birds do not scatter. Trees do not tremble. Everything simply listens, and something answers. You hear it faintly at first, like breath against your ear, then stronger, from across the sea, from beneath the land, from within the roots, echoes of other spirals, other towers, other voices, some ancient, some new, all singing back, not in harmony, but in consensus. The city below is no longer isolated. It is connected, not by path, but by pattern, and you are the fulcrum of that pattern. You do not weep. You do not shout. You only breathe, and the breath becomes echo, and the echo becomes the new story. Time folds again. You descend the tower. The forest has changed again, quieter, clearer. The trees no longer watch or wait, they accompany. When you pass through the coral ring, it sings you through. The beach is soft beneath your feet, and the tide brings a gift, a piece of wood, dark, salt-worn, the same grain as the mast. You pick it up, and on it carved carefully is your name, not the one from the journal, the one you spoke into the mouth, the one you became. You hold it in your hands for a long time, not because it is heavy, but because it is final. A new beginning always is. That night you build a fire not for warmth but for memory. You sit beside it, and you wait for the next sailor, the next dreamer, the next child with hands small enough to climb. And when they come, and they will come, you will tell them your story, not with words, but with spirals drawn in sand, with silence pressed gently into their palms. And when they ask where to go, you will say only, down. And they will nod and walk toward the mast, and the song will begin again. The night is long, but it does not drag. It stretches like silk being pulled across an endless loom, soft and smooth and endless. You sit at the edge of the fire you have kindled not for light, not for warmth, not even for protection, but simply because it is a thing the body remembers. Flame, embers, glow. It flickers gently in the salt-sweet breeze, a pulse of orange amid the heavy stillness of the beach. Above you, the stars have returned, though they now look different. They are no longer cold white pinpricks scattered across an indifferent void. Instead, they shimmer with subtle movement, slow spirals turning ever so gently, echoing the pattern carved into your chest, into the coral, into the mouth of the world. You sit without movement and the fire tells stories. It crackles with the voice of the mast. It hisses like the voice of the roots. It speaks without syllables, without grammar, without rhyme. But still you understand, because now you do not listen with your ears. You listen with memory. Every flame that leaps is a name. Every spark that bursts upward and vanishes is a thought that has reached the top of its spiral and burned away into understanding. You watch them rise, drift, disappear, and still you do not move. The sand cools beneath you. The tide inches nearer, and the trees behind you rustle with a wind that comes not from this shore, but from before a breath, from the age when the sea had not yet formed, when the world still whispered itself into shape from the bones of sleeping coral and the hum of light beneath silence. You have become part of that hum now. It threads through your limbs, it roots you, and it waits for your next breath to continue the song. But you do not breathe, not yet, because something is coming, something is returning, not someone, not exactly, but a presence, a reversal, a reweaving of what once was unraveled. And you know, even before the wind shifts, even before the sand begins to hiss beneath unseen footsteps, that this next moment will matter more than any before, because this is the moment of return, and you must be ready. At first, there is only a faint shimmer on the horizon, not light, not movement, but intent. You rise to your feet slowly, your limbs responding with the fluidity of ritual. You reach down, scoop a handful of red sand, and let it pour through your fingers. Each grain that falls sparkles briefly, as if remembering the sun that once struck it, the tide that once soaked it, the shadow of the ship that once passed above. You do not speak. There is no need. This place does not require announcements, only acknowledgement. The shimmer grows nearer. Now you see it more clearly than before. It is a vessel, but not the Santa Maria, not even a ship as you once understood them. This one is smaller, more delicate in form, and entirely unlike anything that sails or rows or drifts. It appears to float, skimming just inches above the water, or perhaps over a layer of memory more fluid than sea. Its hull is etched with spirals, some old and worn, others fresh, glowing faintly with the golden light of new understanding. There is no mast, no sails, but the movement is steady, deliberate. It is being drawn, not by wind, not by current, by resonance. It is coming because you are here, because the tower has sung, because the spiral has opened again. The vessel reaches the shore without sound. It does not crash, does not slow, does not drop anchor. It simply arrives, and from within someone steps out, a boy, not more than 11, perhaps 12, thin, barefoot, eyes wide, not with fear, but with a deep aching curiosity. He clutches a bundle in one hand too tightly, his knuckles pale, his breath shallow. He scans the beach, the fire, the ring of coral behind you, the trees that lean inward, and finally, your face. When his gaze meets yours, something shifts behind his eyes. Recognition, not of you, but of the moment. He knows this is not a dream. He knows he has reached a turning. You walk toward him slowly, letting each footstep imprint gently into the sand. You stop 3 paces away. He opens his mouth, but no words come. That is good. Words would only distract now. You nod once, then lower yourself to one knee. You reach into your satchel, the same one you carried when you first boarded the Santa Maria, though now it is different, woven through with threads of sea root and etched with the fine gold dust of dreamscape pollen. You remove something, a small piece of wood, dark, salt polished. On it carved clean and deep is the spiral. You offer it to him without explanation. He reaches out, takes it, holds it in both hands, and then breathes. A single breath, but it is enough. The spiral pulses faintly in his palms. The coral rings beyond the trees begin to glow. The sea retreats slightly, forming a pathway. You do not speak. You do not guide. You only accompany. As he takes the first step forward, you walk together through the trees. The forest no longer looms. Now it bows. The path you once made unfolds again, this time faster, clearer, more certain. Not because you remember it perfectly, but because it remembers you. The child says nothing, but his eyes catch every detail. The vines shaped like letters from an alphabet he hasn't yet learned. The way the leaves hum when touched. The distant flicker of lanterns that were never lit, but glow with the memory of fire. When you reach the coral ring, he pauses. He runs his fingers across the edge of the nearest formation as you once did. He hears the song, and like you, he steps inside. And like you, he is not harmed, because he is already part of the spiral. And the spiral does not punish what it recognizes. You follow him to the well. It has opened again, not by force, not by miracle, by invitation. The water within glows softly. He kneels beside it and begins to hum, not a song, a vibration, the same tone you once heard deep beneath the mast. You realize it is his name, not the one given at birth, the one remembered now. And the well responds. He rises, turns, looks at you. You nod once more. This time he does not hesitate. He steps into the well and is gone, not vanished, returned. You sit again. The fire burns low. You draw a spiral in the sand and wait, because soon another vessel will shimmer on the horizon. Another barefoot traveler will arrive, and the spiral will turn again and again and again, forever opening, forever returning, forever remembering. Morning returns without ceremony. No brilliant sunrise or cascade of golden light spills over the horizon. Instead, the sky is simply different, lighter, less heavy. The long arc of twilight, which had stretched itself thin over days or hours or some unknowable quantity of time, finally softens into something closer to what the body once called day. The sea hums lower, now quieter than before, but not gone. It has become like breath during sleep, steady deep and hidden beneath everything else. You stir beside the last flickers of the fire. Ash cools gently beneath your fingertips as you rake your hand through the coals, not to stoke them, but to feel their memory. The glow that once fed the night has dimmed, and in its place is a kind of residue not visible, not tactile, but present, a warmth that holds your skin the way a lullaby might hold a child. The spiral drawn in the sand is still there, undisturbed, though the wind should have erased it, and the tide should have swept it away. But this place you now know is not bound by such simple rules. You sit upright and look around. The coral glows faintly in the distant grove. The trees still lean in silent observance. The well, now closed again, rests with a sense of peace, as though it too is catching its breath after the weight of the boy's journey. He was the latest, perhaps the most recent in a long and ancient line of rememberers, but not the last. Of that, you are now certain. The spiral turns forward, not back. It always has. But that realization doesn't stir urgency in you. There is no haste. The path of the spiral cannot be rushed. It is not a road to be run, but a pattern to be walked in time, with breath and thought. You press your palm to the sand once more. This time you close your eyes, and you listen. What you hear is not sound, not precisely. It's more like shape, the architecture of understanding unfolding in silence, layer by layer. You've spent much of this journey listening to things the world once told you weren't meant to be heard. The roots, the mast, the coral, the journal, the ship, as it became something else. But now you're listening to something older still. You're listening to what listens back, and you begin to understand. The spiral isn't a sign or a sigil or a symbol meant for decoration. It is the shape of hearing. It describes how thought travels not in lines, but in folds. Not from point to point, but in patterns that return to where they began, altered by the journey, enriched by detours. It shows how memory echoes, how stories are passed not forward like torches, but inward like breath. And so you draw another spiral in the sand, this one slightly smaller. Inside it, you write your name, not with letters, not with script, but with feeling. A pulse, a vibration through your fingertip. You press it into the center of the spiral and leave it there for several breaths. When you lift your hand, the spiral begins to shimmer, and for a moment, just a moment, you see everything again. The Santa María, once splintered, now reformed somewhere beneath the waves, its mast rising like a monument to the memory of voyages that never truly ended. The tower in the grove still singing its tones, drifting into other places, other times, carried not by wind or water, but by recognition. The city below, pulsing with slow and sacred light, its corridors expanding to accommodate new arrivals, its wells opening one by one, awaiting the touch of hands that still remember how to listen. The boy, now far below, walking through spiraled halls of woven coral, his spiral glowing faintly, his steps guided by instincts he has not yet learned to question. And beyond him, others, dozens, hundreds, some in ships, some on foot, some dreaming on mountaintops, some staring at cracks in ancient walls, seeing spirals where others saw only decay. They are all walking the same path. They are all part of the same pattern, and they are coming. You return from the vision softly. No sharp separation between trance and waking, just a thinning of one membrane, a thickening of another. You feel the shift like a tide drawing inward. You rise to your feet again and stretch your limbs. They are not sore. They no longer carry the weight of a cabin boy crouched in the belly of a Spanish galleon. They no longer tremble with the memory of hunger or fear or the cracking of sails in the wind. They are strong now the way roots are strong, not through muscle but through place. You are anchored, you are held, and you are ready. You gather your belongings, though there is little left to carry. The satchel is empty now, save for a single page torn from the journal. You don't remember tearing it. The edges are too smooth, the ink too fresh, but it is yours. You know that without question. On the page is a single line. Every mast is a mouth, every root is a road. You fold it carefully and place it back inside. You leave the spiral drawn in the sand undisturbed. It is not meant to be erased. It is meant to be found. You walk to the edge of the forest again, pausing to glance back at the beach. You know the next one will come soon. They always do, sometimes as children, sometimes as old men and women, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the moment, just before waking, when the world still flickers with otherworldly logic. But they always arrive, and when they do, they'll find the spiral. They'll find the well. They'll find the memory. And perhaps they'll find you if you're still walking here, or someone else like you. Because now you understand you were never the first, and you will not be the last. You step into the forest. The trees shift gently to let you pass. Their limbs do not grab or question. They remember you. You walk deeper, following no path, yet never doubting your steps. Each root beneath your foot is a thread connecting you to something more. Each rustle in the leaves is a whisper from another voice long past or yet to come. You walk until the light above dims again, not into darkness but into shade. And there you stop, because before you stands another mast, smaller, new, but humming with the same spiral hum. You step forward, place your hand upon it. The wood breathes beneath your touch. The spiral glows softly, and the mast opens. You smile, because you know exactly what to do. And now we slow, not to end but to breathe, to let the spiral loosen its final coil, not unraveling, not fraying but widening gently like the circles on water after a stone has disappeared beneath its surface. You are still there, standing at the mast, palm resting against the grain, breath held somewhere between memory and song. You do not climb now. You do not descend. You listen. The ship is gone, but you remember the hum of its wood, the shape of its shadow on the sea, the way its mast whispered when no one else would speak. You remember the journal not for the words it gave, but for the silences it kept. You remember the boy who arrived barefoot and afraid. You remember the well that opened to receive him. And you remember yourself, not as a sailor, not as a witness, but as part of the spiral, always part of the spiral. The trees grow quiet behind you. The sea softens to a whisper. The coral glows in slow pulses, no longer summoning, no longer warning, simply existing. The world does not spin here. It unfolds. You take one final breath, not to prepare, to rest, to settle, to return. And as the mast opens again, just a little, just enough, you step forward, not to seek answers, not to chase destiny, but to remind the next voice that silence too has a story to tell, and that every spiral, even the smallest, even yours, will turn again and again and again, forever listening, forever remembering, forever becoming.